to speak to those that have gone before
Thank you all for coming. Like, again, feel free to leave any comments if you wanna say anything during the entire process. And this is an initiative done by Loom Festival, which, if you're not familiar, is an interdisciplinary arts festival based in Barcelona. Obviously, this year we didn't have the chance to make it happen, as every major event in the world, I think. And in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic and everything that was going on in the world, we took some time for introspection, the entire team, and we came up with this idea of Loom Senses, where we can go deeper into different topics. We can speak to people that usually wouldn't, that we didn't think we could program, but actually we found a really great spot for them in the festival for now and for the future. We're speaking to journalists, to writers, to philosophers, and we are just discussing the current situation and topics that could interest us. So our first theme inside of Loom Senses is the awakening from unconscious to conscious action, and that means we realize that the system in which we are in doesn't work, and we are just investigating ways on how we could get more conscious about our existence and how that can help overall everyone. So we're super happy to have Liam here with us. He's been a big inspiration, and we've been reading and watching his work really closely. He's a friend of ours. We've seen kind of like the different projects he's been involved in, and it's really exciting to have him here. Welcome, Liam. Liam is an Australian-born writer and cultural curator. He was living for a long time in Madrid, and recently he moved to Ibiza. And he started ColourFeel, which is a project to create experiences for people, which are inspirational, immersive, introspective, and they are really inspiring for us. So I think that's a little bit of an intro. Then Liam, I was just before we were talking, I spent the day like kind of digging into your work and the latest projects you've done, especially ColourFeel, which I think is a really interesting initiative. And it all felt really close to me, and I think to a lot of people here who are involved in festivals, because it's also it's a way of curating, different artists from different disciplines and choosing places and just kind of dealing with all these processes that are how to create this experience for people. And I think that's really close to what small festivals do. You do it even on a smaller case. You just like
Yeah.
which is really interesting. So can you tell us a little bit more on the project and what does it stand for? How did it start?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I have seen a lot of these webinars. The ones you guys do are really, really interesting and don't usually involve people just talking about themselves the whole time. I think what this year needs more of is less people talking about everything they do and want to do and everything. So I'm going to try and explain what I do and kind of the ColourFeel project, but hopefully extrapolate lessons for everyone rather than it just be like this promotional hour, which I think is really boring for me and possibly for you. So I will tell a little bit about my origin story. It kind of started, I think ColourFeel started actually as an idea in Ibiza, and I wasn't living here, but it was kind of a very interesting time in my life. I was still working for this magazine, Monocle magazine, which is great. It focuses on positive news, so it's always taking me to really amazing, exemplary places and meeting people. But there was something about writing that was really beginning to bug me, which was I would go and visit all these amazing places and meet all these amazing people, and that would be great. And then I would go back and have to write. And I enjoyed writing, but what I didn't enjoy was just being stuck in front of a screen. all day, all night. Like I'm the king of doing an all-nighter to finish a piece, and that was just getting really bugging me. And I felt like not just the writing, it was also once it was finished, I'd send it off to my editor, and then the culmination of all your work is just seeing it back laid out on the page or published, and that's it. And you never really see where that story goes or the effect it has. Sometimes people come back to you and say, oh, that article you wrote about me, well, this happened, some investor came, or something amazing happened because of that publicity. Occasionally that will happen, but I just wasn't really, I felt like I was out of the chain. I just wasn't involved in seeing the effect of my work. And so I started collaborating a bit more, organizing press trips for brands to Madrid, and just kind of trying to introduce them to different places and people, and just do something different rather than just, I don't know, take people around on a whistle stop tour. There are tourists still coming to Ibiza at the moment. There's a tourist just about to walk past with a noisy suitcase, so I might just pause. You probably still hear me, right? So basically, there was another thing that was happening was I was organizing those things, and then I got involved in this amazing project for Red Bull, Rebel Frontiers, by this amazing woman called Sarah Hall, who has an agency called Harley and Company. And we collaborated together on that, bringing that project to Europe. And she was so great to work with. And that once again showed me just the power of immersive experiences and storytelling, live storytelling. Like, it was really, really, really powerful. That was very immersive experiences. And then she called me up a few months later to say, oh, I need to do one in Ibiza for this brand. And we ended up doing one in Ibiza, which was for some female runners. And there was a moment where I had it very clear that I wanted to organize like a closing ceremony, something magical. I always like to touch on quasi or fully spiritual topics when I do these things. So like one thing I realized is that in the modern world, we just don't have enough time and space to really think about what the hell we're doing. Like, we're running around, we're filling our day with all these like tasks and appointments and trying to chase that bread, get paid, impress, I don't know, whoever's around us in cities. Like, it's this constant competition to look good, to be good, to feel good. And that just takes it out of us. In the end, we're just like, I suppose some people will get to their 40s, 50s and kind of sit back and wonder, like, what have I been doing? What have I been running around? What have I been chasing? So what I like to do is create places and moments where people can, this is really live TV. People can actually stop, reflect, and kind of go deeper into ideas and issues and emotions that they don't really have the opportunity to in their day-to-day lives. Also, just taking people out of their normal environment, if they're not in the cities, it instantly starts a change of thought patterns, right? So, like, I don't know if you guys know much about the way old sanitariums used to work, but they used to take people out into the countryside to these hospitals that were in the middle of the forest or whatever, and that was meant to psychologically and physiologically actually start a healing process of people, just because they're out of their normal day-to-day kind of patterns, right? So where was I? So basically in Ibiza, I was trying to find this closing ceremony thing, and I called up this woman who was a healer who had been given a list of massage therapists. And I said, hi, my name's Liam. I'm looking to do an event for women, and I want to do kind of like a ritual or a ceremony. I'm not quite sure. And she says, okay, I'll meet you tomorrow. And I said, okay, well, okay. I had one day left, so I was like, that works for me. So when I met her the next day, she sat down, she had a beautiful energy about her. And she said, so Liam, the reason I'm meeting with you today so abruptly or so like on a whim is because I just had a baby recently, 3 months ago, and I've just started thinking about getting back into the workforce. And I literally was just thinking yesterday that I wanted to focus more on women and do more rituals and ceremonies. I'm an Ayurveda massage expert, but I really want to get into more rituals. And then you called me up and said, hi, my name's Liam. I'm doing an event for women and I want to do a ritual. And we both had like goosebumps. It was crazy. And then from there, it just kind of got carried away. We kept talking. She was so amazing. She put so much effort into this amazing ritual, which was in front of Esvedra, near Esboldado, like on this cliff overlooking at the sunset. When we arrived that day, the cloud was like circling around the rock of Esvedra. I've never seen it like that before. This golden sunlight. There were 4 women, all kind of white witches. They brought everyone in. They're playing instruments. All the women sat in a circle. It was about 25 women in the end. And they told the story of Esvedra and how Ibiza is very strong for women. And then they proceeded to sing mantras in a very organic way, but it just kind of reached a crescendo. I think they were singing for about an hour. And there was a few guys working on that event, and we were all kind of in the bushes like creeps, hanging back because like we didn't want to enter into that women's circle. Because in the end, the ceremony ended up being a blessing of the uterus ceremony. We didn't sell it like that, but it was that's what it was themed around. So yeah, we weren't really invited. But I remember just being in the bushes, looking at Esvedra, seeing the cloud circle around, hearing these women all holding hands, singing these really powerful unifying mantras, and thinking, wow, this all came from an idea that I had 6 weeks ago, and it's kind of grown and evolved into this very powerful moment for a lot of people. This is what I want to do more of. And so that's how ColourFeel was born. Like right there, that was February last year. And then, yeah, I just started putting my energy into the vision, and it all just kind of, I think the first specific job that I did was in September in the Bardenas Reales desert in Spain for a tech company. And since then I've been like full throttle. So it's been that's kind of like the genesis story, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, that sounds really nice. I mean, yeah, we definitely came across the one on the desert. You also had like Ego Sex, which is a really nice band performing, and that was fun for sure.
The best.
So the name is interesting. It's ColourFeel, so it has a lot to do with colors. Also, I'm not sure, like, you guys should definitely sign up to their newsletter and follow them on social media, but you will see that every month or so you send out a newsletter, right? And that one.
Yeah, well, I don't say every month, and I also don't like the word newsletter, because I mean, who isn't annoyed with all the newsletters or like the post-COVID-19 newsletters clogging up your inbox? I just like delete them all. I'm deleting like 150 emails a day, I think. Not all newsletters. I like to call it an occasional. So I'm not kind of slave to any time window where I like have to whip something up. I feel like I release a digital dispatch, as I call them, rather than a newsletter. And the reason I called it a digital dispatch was kind of tongue-in-cheek, because I created ColourFeel as well to kind of put more appreciation on real-world, I guess, analog experiences, but just human real-world experiences. Because I feel like last year I had the sensation, and I guess a lot of people would share that sensation, of we're kind of gradually creeping towards this digital dystopia where everything is lived and experienced through our phone, through our computer, through a screen in some shape or form. And I'm a true believer in technology. I'm not anti social media or anti anything 100%, but I do believe like we only really feel the positive effects of, or the energy of, and feelings and emotions and all the kind of things that come along with it in the real world. The digital has to be a tool to get us there, but it can't be the destination. And now with this year, where we're doing this digitally instead of the festival, we all sat in quarantine for weeks on end, experiencing the world through our screen. I mean, I was running through the mountains, because in Ibiza I lived in the countryside, and scanning the sky for drones. Like, so there were police drones patrolling the sky to find people who are running or walking out in the countryside. And I was just like, what's happened? Like, all the other stuff aside, all the pandemic and all the other crazy economic issues and everything aside, just as I'm talking about like the woes of technology, they're cutting me off. It's actually my phone's overheating. One thing, it's the other. So yeah, bear with me. But yeah, so I created the digital dispatch just as a way to still show that the digital is important. That's all we have at this time. But I created something that's not just a newsletter of like, here's some interesting things. It was more like a week's worth of material. There were films to watch. There were videos made by some of the people I work with. Like, for example, Lena Sophie, who did like kind of a video on how to cleanse your space, like with different smells, sounds, even little prayers, which was the first one we did was all about home as an extension of the cell. Then I had Marema Gatemonk, and she's an amazing trainer. She's an amazing dancer. She actually trains the Paris opera dancers, and she also helped train Natalie Portman for Black Swan. And she actually had never done a video before. She had a studio, she has her top clients, and she doesn't feel the need to overexpose herself on the digital. But then she was thinking, well, now I can't do my classes, what am I going to do? So in the end, she ended up doing one of her first videos for the Digital Dispatch, and now she's been training the American ballet dancers online, doing online classes. So we kind of talked about how, like, we're not really comfortable doing the digital, but we just have to do something. Something is better than nothing, and maybe it will just put us in the right direction. And now we're very happy that we kind of went on that process, because she's doing these online classes now. And for me, doing the Digital Dispatch, it was very interesting just to keep me engaged and keep me inspired, and just to kind of like put some positive information and energy back into the stream, I guess, because everything seems so negative. And I guess we just love complaining, and there's a lot of people who are probably actually like part of them really wants the apocalypse to happen. Like, that's one thing that I just find mind-boggling. Like, there's some people who just like seem disappointed when the worst thing doesn't happen, because they just need that like inevitability of human drama. But I wanted to try and, I don't know, put something interesting into the stream, because I really think like the most important thing that art or anything artistic can do is to give people a bigger perspective rather than the day-to-day. Like, the digital architecture is making our attention span shorter, but it's also robbing us of the ability to really reflect and think long-term and think beyond our even lifetime, which is really important. So I wanted to kind of create a batch of material, also collaborating with lots of people who I knew were also just twiddling their thumbs and fretting about what was going to happen. And we just wanted something to engage in and do something that would kind of keep us inspired and thinking about, okay, what's our story for 2020? Did we just, when the quarantine happened, did we just pack up shop, look at Instagram, or put on a movie and just, I don't know, go to sleep? Like, what next year, what are you going to tell? What's the story you're going to tell about how you went through the year? And whether we made any money, I think we're all pretty clear we're not going to make much money unless some of you have full-time jobs or are already rich. But it's not all about making money. As long as we have a roof over our head and we have some food and we have materials to do what we do, I think we're going to be okay. And then hopefully that apocalypse doesn't happen.
Definitely made us all think and explore new ways and get more in touch with each other in a way. So Liam, like, I want to get a little bit deeper into your personal story. I know you don't really want to talk that much about it, but
I'm fine with that.
I think it's important for people also to understand your project. So you were born in Australia, moved to Madrid, then you spent the last time in Ibiza, which is now your home. And hearing this story and obviously listening to a lot of other podcasts and being in touch with other people over the digital world and also people I know closely, it feels like there's this attachment and dislocation from modern metropolis, these huge cities that we all as creatives should be living in, because there's the industry there, it looks like everything is placed there, and you pretty much have no other option but to go to one of these places. And but there is this movement of people just leaving that behind, or just finding other formulas where they don't have to spend the entire year living in a city, just reaching out for nature, for smaller places. And I think that's also your case. And can you tell us a little bit more about why did you make this choice? Why did you?
Yeah, of course. There was something like deep within me that made that choice for me. I think last year there was lots of frustrations last year. There was lots of inspirations, but also lots of frustrations. And one of them was just on a sensorial level, like the city, Madrid. I don't know if anyone knows Madrid, but it's very rambunctious and loud, and it's just a 24-hour cacophony. And there was something about the sounds that was just constantly annoying me. The smells. I think Madrid at that time, all the pavements were being redone, so it was just jackhammers. It was just crazy, and it was just really bugging me, and the smells. And then, to be blatantly honest, the political change in the city was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. There was a very progressive mayor in the city called Manuela Carmena, who I, as a foreigner and as a journalist, really enjoyed, because she kind of brought some fresh air to the city hall. Before that, it had been a conservative city hall for 24 years, which I think any government that lasts 24 years is far too long. And she came in with a very progressive agenda, and it was kind of like a miracle that she even won the election, and really changed the city and just kind of improved little things, did little things like putting poetry phrases. I mean, she did lots of big things as well, but just little tiny things that made a big difference, like putting 1,200 poetry phrases on the pavements as you waited for traffic. You could read poetry, and a lot of them were submitted by Madrileños themselves. It was just like a very interesting time to be in the city. And then she lost the election. She kind of won the election, but didn't get enough money, didn't get enough votes or seats to form a government. And then the Conservatives got their worst result ever, but were able to go into a coalition with the centre-right party and the far-right party and govern Madrid. So I was like thinking, do I really want to be here? Because their whole agenda, their whole platform had been to basically erase everything that Manuela Carmena had done. And I know what kind of energy that whips up when there's a big political change in a place. Like, you look at Brexit, you look what happened with the United States with Trump. I mean, that's been never ending since he won. But a lot of people were really depressed when like Brexit happened. Like, the city became depressed, because I really feel like the emotional energy of the individual on a collective level affects cities in ways we can't really quantify. One second. No, deja abierto. Sorry, cosas de directo. So basically, I just didn't want. I just knew what was coming. I knew what was coming in Madrid. I knew that the kind of mayor that the new mayor was going to be. Going into a coalition with the far right was scary to me. And I also was like, I'm a foreigner. This isn't my city. Like, I love Madrid. I feel like it is part of my city, but I also, as a foreigner, have the luxury of being able to choose where I can go. Like, I don't have to be here. I don't have my family here. So I was thinking, where should I go? I was thinking, well, I just don't know where I would go. I was really kind of despondent. And then I thought maybe Ibiza, because I'd written a book about Ibiza. I love this place. It's also it just made sense as far as ColourFeel is concerned. And the next day, a friend wrote to me and said, hi, I'm renting my studio. Do you know anyone that's looking for a studio? Because I don't want it to go to anyone. I was just thinking, wow, this is crazy. And that place is where I live now. It all just like fell into place. So I really feel like there was some kind of voice or some kind of, I don't know, guardian or something that really just pushed me out of Madrid before this year happened. And I had the luxury, and I woke up every day being very grateful of waking up to the sound of birds in this pine forest, on a mountain, in this beautiful house in the countryside, on an island. And then the whole world just went bonkers, and the pandemic happened, and I could have been in Madrid, like in this very kind of small apartment with no views, locked in. I mean, I'm sure I would have made the best of it, but I'm very happy that I was where I was, because I felt I had the luxury of being able to think bigger ideas with bigger space, and make sure that my mental health like stayed in good shape, I guess, because I don't know about the rest of you, but the quarantine had its highs and had its lows. I definitely had some lows, but I couldn't imagine being stuck in a small apartment.
Yeah, that definitely happened to all of us. You were really lucky though. And this kind of like mixes up with the next question I wanted to ask you. I was watching this video of you the other day in this house, which is really, really beautiful. And you were speaking about how you started like contemplating nature, and you started just digging deeper into things, like simple things like cooking, like all of these things that we tend to forget we should do or we can do living in a metropolis. What are your major outtakes of this lockdown period?
Well, my major outtake is I really don't need much. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's what everyone else kind of thought, but I was isolated. Like, I don't have a car. I was using my bike to get into town, which is like a 20-minute bike ride away. Well, it's like 35 minutes walking. So every decision you have to really like. I didn't go into the shop sometimes 2 weeks on end. So I was really isolated. But yeah, my main take was I didn't really need much stuff, and that I really felt like the question that kept going around my mind was, we're suddenly living in this world where connection and proximity is somewhat of a taboo, or we're being told that that's part of the problem, like that's getting close to people that could be contagious, they're infectious, no hugs, no, like just stay in your homes. But then we know what's coming up ahead. There's like, this isn't over. This is just the start of things, and all the ruin that's happened in the last few weeks of just everyone being immobile and not being able to run their businesses. That's going to bring more political and economic instability. So we know that things aren't necessarily just going to improve and be okay. So I was thinking the only way to get through that is to connect with people even stronger, and to like form better bonds, and to not just fight it as on an individual level. Like, we need to actually become stronger. There needs to be more solidarity. So that's the paradox, right? The paradox at the moment is you need to stay away from everyone, but we also need to band together to make sure the powers that be, or the economic forces that be, which are the powers that be, aren't just milking the situation for everything that we're worth, and that we can actually design a world that we actually want to live in. Because it's kind of like, are we just sitting around at home waiting until like everything's redesigned, retweaked, and then we come out into this completely new existence? I don't think so. I don't think we want that. And that digital dystopia that I talked about earlier is a total nightmare. And is it going to become even more digital, the world now, because we're told that's the only safe way to experience the world? I think people, I mean, if you just walk around Ibiza now, like, everyone is just itching to dance. Like, dance is probably the best kind of symbol of where we are right now, because dancing is illegal at the moment. Like, it's kind of like back in the 1950s, when dancing was seen as kind of this very perverse activity. And now, like, dancing is legal, but like everyone just wants to go and dance, because dancing is a release. Like, we need to dance. We need to just let loose and connect with each other on this kind of primal level. And yeah, but we're not allowed to do that. So I mean, how do we overcome that? And one of the ways, I don't know if you guys have been following what's happening in London, for example, all these illegal parties are springing up in London, to the point where the police are going in and they're trying to shut them down, and then there's riots and the police are attacked, but everyone is just like partying. It's kind of like the 1980s all over again, with the acid house rave movement, looking for a release. Like, and is that where we're going? Are we going to create all these underground parties as a way to say fuck you to the system? We're going to respect the pandemic rules and everything to a certain degree, but at what point are we just going to have to wait around and not do anything if we're taking precautions and doing the right thing? So I don't want to be one of those voices that's telling everyone, no, this is a total scam, the government is like trying to control us. Like, I think at the end of the day, most governments are trying to do the best for their society on a macro level. They also don't want to see their hospitals collapse. But at the macro level, a lot of the time governments forget what life is like on the individual level, and things get out of control. And police, who are always authoritarian and power hungry, take things way too over the top, and they love to take control. So that's a problem. But I still think it's at some point this year we need to take life back and get back to living in the real world, no?
Yeah, definitely. And also, I mean, really loved what you said there with dancing, because we feel like dancing is always kind of a release, and where everything starts. Actually, this links up to the first conversation we had here in our first series with Boromir Doringer, which is this multidisciplinary artist and researcher, and we were digging deep into his work, where we kind of explored the power of dance floors. All of his work is really related to this, and we explored like the power of dance floors to change socially people, and how every possible art or cultural revolution started on a dance floor eventually. So this also connects in a way to ColourFeel, and one of the projects you did with ColourFeel that really brought our attention, which is linked to Tbilisi, which is the capital of Georgia, and it's a city we have a really deep personal connection to also, and we were lucky enough to visit it twice before the pandemic. And you can really feel in a place like that how a dance floor can really influence an entire city. And clubs like Bassiani obviously contribute to this. What do you think? What were your impressions of the clubbing scene, of your experience in Georgia? Tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, so it's clear for everyone listening to this. Basically, what ColourFeel does is create experiences, usually trips, for brands, companies, or consolidated groups. No, so I like to kind of take people away and shift their perspectives in a way just through the sheer act of storytelling, immersive storytelling. That's basically it. And then we kind of do other things as well based on that. That's the same kind of philosophy of inspiring people and just getting people to think outside of their default mode network, basically. So with Georgia, I managed to take a client there, a really, really nice brand who's very, very forward thinking. And this brand basically told me the team that I was taking there was really, really good at what they did. They were involved in kind of influencer marketing, and they had a very good sense of intuition and everything. But she said, the leader of the team said, they just needed to probably, maybe they're really good with their intuition, but they're probably not conscious. They're just really good at what they do. So we wanted to unpack, obviously, how to recruit good energy, as we called it, or good talent. But also the issue was that particular team was kind of like the elite kind of team in a bigger company. And she said they needed to be we need a bit more kind of confluence between that team and the rest. So I was like, okay, so what you need to do, they need to learn a bit of maybe humility and maybe the art of kind of persuading the rest of the team to do what they want, rather than ordering them in a way. So I thought Georgia was perfect because the client was interested in Georgia anyway, because she said that her team, most of the team who travel a lot, hadn't all been there. So that was already interesting to them. And she was really heard things about the club scene and whatever. But when I went there to do the scout, I realized that the revolution, the Georgian Revolution, which was in 2004, of kind of a young, culturally aware mass of people who really rebelled against kind of a lot of years of Soviet repression, but then the kind of decadence that happened after that and the corruption, they all kind of took to the streets, revolted, and the country changed. And then when I went there in 2019, I saw that the revolution was still being played out, although in a different capacity, but it was being played out in the dance floors, on the dance floors, in the nightclubs of Tbilisi's amazing night scene. And the soundtrack of that revolution continues to be hardcore techno, which is really, really interesting. And when you go into the clubs, you see all these kids in these clubs. The reason the revolution is being played out in those nightclubs is because they're safe spaces for socially progressive, artistically minded, creative people who can go there and kind of go into a world where they're not exposed to kind of the orthodox society around them. So when I went in there, you just see all these kids like dancing kind of like they're possessed. They're just dancing in the most free way possible without any care about what they look like or no inhibitions. And it was, and they were, most of them on drugs because it's really hard to get drugs in Georgia. So they're all just super free and dancing all day just to techno. And when I met a lot of the creator community, they told me the recurring theme was that they knew what had happened in the recent past in Georgia. Like their older brothers or older sisters had lived through a really difficult time. Their parents told them, and they didn't want their country to go back to those dark times. So they were really, really motivated to put 100% of their creativity into everything they were doing and really kind of pushing Georgia into a better future, right? So I feel like the lesson that ColourFeel has learned from Georgia is that I learned from Georgia was really prescient. It's like a seminal kind of seminal lesson that we can all learn from today. It's like they don't really have much, but they put so much into what they do, and they're just all collaborating, and they're not really driven by money. They're all just driven by a common purpose and a bigger goal, and hopefully that will reap the rewards later down the track, and it already is. But it was yeah, really interesting trip, because I took them through, obviously the nightclubs were kind of like the grand crescendo at the end, but I based it around this concept called face control. I don't know if Bogomir talked about face control at all, but do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really go deep into face control, but it's definitely something really interesting to touch on. We were really impressed on how you cannot even compare it to Berlin face control, because you don't even have the people there, but it's all done through a camera. That was really impressive to us. But yeah, go on about it.
Well, face control as a concept fascinated me, because face control comes originally from Moscow, or from Russia, but from Moscow. The face control there is super superficial. So it's about when you go to the club, they look you up and down. What are you wearing? What watch is on your wrist? Who's the girl on your arm? What car did you pull up in? Or all that, and vice versa. And that's definitely not what happens in Georgia. In Georgia, I asked them what's the difference, and they said, well, I guess we just judge them when they come to the door based on their creative energy and their intentions. And what about the intentions? And the guy who looks after face control at Bassiani said to me, well, it's as simple as, why are you here? Why have you come here tonight? Because some people want to come here and stab the people inside because they don't believe about their sexuality or their lifestyle. So, I mean, why are you here? And some people will say, oh, I'm here for the music. And he will reply, who's DJing tonight? And if they don't know, they don't get in. It's just that simple. So it's kind of like, you just have to see what people are looking for in life. And I kind of extrapolated that face control concept and put it onto the team to kind of get them to apply it to their kind of talent scouting, but the collaborations that they're doing for that brand. For example, if they're going to work with a rapper, he might have some really good music and everyone might be listening to him in the clubs right now, but what are his views on certain key issues, and what's his long-term goal? And are you going to be having to like kind of pull a collection or some campaign in 2 years because you didn't know that he was a misogynistic prick? Things like that, which are really obvious and quite simple, but I kind of did all these activities, which a lot of them are like treasure hunts of people. Like I took them to this cultural precinct. I basically invited one of Georgia's really interesting designers from The Situationist to come, the owner of the hotel we stayed at to come, the head of face control from Bassiani, Tamra from Tamra Skateboard, she's a really top female skater, to come. The guys from Shota Shoes came, and they were hidden around, like sitting around the cultural precinct in different spaces. And when the team arrived, they had it was like a treasure hunt. They had clues to find people, and when they found people, they had to ask them, "Oh, are you Shota from Krusty Shoes?" And he'd be like, "Yes, take a seat." And then he would give them another envelope, and there were some questions in that envelope for them to ask each other about their creative energy and about their intentions. And so they kind of had like a 15-minute conversation without knowing who they were talking to about their intentions in life. And then they were given another envelope to ask them, okay, so why do you do what you do? And by the way, what do you do? And then they found out who the person was. So it's kind of like unpacking people's motivations in life before they were giving you all that kind of superficial fronting stuff, like selling themselves. And everyone's trying to sell themselves these days because that's the kind of market economy we're in, especially with social media. But it was really interesting. I was just kind of connecting the whole creative community with this team. And then we did another one of those kind of treasure hunts with people in the nightclubs in Drama Bar. I'm sure you went to Drama Bar, which is in an old apartment building, abandoned apartment building, I think on the 3rd story. It's an apartment, super nice club, one of the nicest, coolest clubs I've been to. Great music, lots of little areas. And in there, I had like one of Georgia's best rappers from Kayakata, Max Machaidze, I had one of the guys who's leading the white noise movement, who has campaigned for drug reform and got weed decriminalized in Georgia. I had a trans guy who's still a guy there as well, and he's one of the only drag performers in Tbilisi, or publicly so, and he's had a lot of death threats, and he only feels safe in the clubs. They were all kind of stationed in the club as well, and they had another kind of treasure hunt to find people and just have conversations with them. So it was kind of like, Georgia was completely opened my eyes, because I just saw a creative community just really with not much at all, but super happy and really motivated to motivated and gathering around a common goal, which is to improve their country, which I think we could all learn from at the moment, because the country just doesn't improve itself, and we just can't sit around and just do our own thing. We need to kind of band together.
Definitely. I mean, that's exactly the spirit of Tbilisi that we caught up ourselves into, and it's really inspiring to see these people where there's not even that much of Instagram going on, that much of following, and in a way that doesn't matter so much. So that allows them to really have this ever flourishing scene that's really impressive, really recommendable to check it out.
And one of the things I didn't mention, I don't know if you're about to ask about Nika in the countryside.
I was just going on to that. So that's the next question, and that's something that was really interesting to read about. So you went to this winery and you visited the post-revolutionary Minister of Culture of Georgia, and there's a quote from him that really feels relatable, and maybe it's something we should take more into consideration. You can't always change the world, but we can change this village and make a difference. So we in a way, we kind of, as creatives, we fall in love with doing these big things and changing the world, and just like doing something that's so big that when you do it, you kind of like don't even enjoy the process anymore, because it's so big and so ambitious and requires so much out of you. But maybe doing things on a smaller scale will be better and more sustainable. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but I think, changing the world is such an abstract kind of goal and an idea, isn't it? I think you do change the world by changing your local community. That's a cliche, but it's totally true. If the idea is good enough and you have a good enough intention and effect, and then that's going to flow out into the world and be emulated, and that's how you change the world. But you don't change the world just by applying stuff to the world, unless you're, I don't know, a laser beam from outer space or something. I think we need to recalibrate our goals as well, and focus on changing our city or changing our community. And Nika, the Nika Vashishvili, he was Georgia's post-revolutionary culture minister. He basically had to walk into that cultural ministry empty and hire the whole ministry with no budget, all from scratch. And he went around kind of investing in different cultural sites, and really, because after there was so much neglect during the Soviet years and post-Soviet years in the culture ministry, they just didn't spend anything. He just had to kind of, he said it was really difficult knowing where to allot, a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. But when he left, I think he started a budget was a few thousand, and when he left, it was 30 million or something. But he left kind of a bit disillusioned, because then a new party came in, once again a pro-Russian party, a pro-Russian president, and so he kind of left the city and he moved to the countryside to build a winery and a bed and breakfast in the countryside in the valley where wine is said to have been invented. And all the villagers were there why are you here? You come from the city, everyone's rich there, you come to live with us in poverty. And he just went there because there was a beautiful church there, one of the oldest, a very small church on a mountain, that one of his projects was to reform it. So he continued restoring that church, a very painstaking process, and started his winery. But then he started hiring the local villagers to cook the food, and then
people from Switzerland and Sweden and all these countries that had never gone to that valley before started booking rooms there, and the villagers saw that, oh wow, there's a business here, maybe this is something, and they've all started kind of doing up their wineries and emulating a little bit his model. And that's where the whole, you don't have to, like, I mean, look at Nika Dashishvili. He was literally revolutionizing and changing the entire country. He had a budget to back him up, and then he kind of lost that post and renounced that post as well because he didn't agree with the new direction of the government. He went to the countryside, and he's still doing that little church, which is super important in the long term, and he's inspiring and changing the perspective of the villagers around, who can see there is another way to making money, and there is a world outside of their little valley, right? So that was really, really inspiring, and that was the whole point. We went there. He met us in the church. The group had done kind of a walk around this mountain, a curated walk with once again reflections to kind of talk with each other, and then we took them to the church. And Nika was waiting for them inside, and he didn't really know who he was. And then we kind of explained. And then basically, we went and had dinner at his house, and he cooked, and we had a conversation over dinner. And it was a really, really, really special time. But I think Georgia just didn't stop inspiring, just because the people there were just really, I think, just really engaging. No one had that kind of digital, I don't know, that kind of absence that people have these days. You know, everyone's, their mind is so overladen with information that they just kind of check out. In Georgia, everyone was just really present and really enthusiastic. I really want to get back there.
Yeah, super nice. And okay, we're just kind of coming to the end of our conversation, and I want to take you a little bit back to your present moment and what's happening right now with ColourFeel. You're in Ibiza, and Ibiza is obviously this quite controversial space. Let's say that it is obviously a space where there's a high perception, like a high frequency of the spiritual movement. Like you had the hippies back in the day, all of this was happening. Then it shifted towards this mega club, massive touristic industry, and in a way, these two things find a way to live together in this island. And there's still this really special energy that if you're a little bit in touch with it, you can definitely sense it. How do you see Ibiza now? How do you find this happening? And also tell us a little bit about your latest project for El Palacete.
Yeah, I think Ibiza's in a moment of recalibration for sure. I think that's going to happen after the summer. Like all the major clubs aren't opening, so that's there's a lot of people rejoicing about that, because most of the people that live here don't go to the major clubs, or at least very often. And I feel like they're all owned by massive economic interests as well. You've got Pacha, which is brought by a consortium of ex-Lehman Brothers, Opus Dei, ultra-conservative investors who the first thing they did when they actually took control of Pacha and the other clubs they owned was take out the condo machines because it was against their religious values. So, I mean, there's something very amiss about Ibiza in the last few years, because, yeah, all the big clubs are just owned by massive economic powers. But then you have the other side of the island, which is, I guess, very, it goes deeper than just like what people experience on a material level. Like Ibiza, people have come here as kind of like a pilgrimage for a long time, and we can go back thousands of years to the Phoenicians who used to come here on their way out of the Mediterranean. This was one of the main stops they came. It was a trading hub. But then I also sent their illustrious dead to be buried here because they believed the soil was meant to be magical and spiritual, because there were no snakes or scorpions on the island. So Ibiza has always had this kind of mythology around it. The Romans used to come and collect the soil and wear it around their necks to protect them in battle. People came here in the 50s, or even in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, all the kind of intellectuals escaping the war. And then the 50s and 60s, the hippie movement started. The 70s, it went out of control. 80s became more decadent with coup and all that kind of stuff. So there's always something. Ibiza's always got reinventing itself, but it always is about connecting with people, letting go of all that kind of constructed self that we have in urban centers a lot of the time, and just being yourself here. And I feel like the clubs are just a derivation of that sentiment and that phenomenon. It's not, the clubs don't exist in one universe and then the spiritual side exists on another side. They're all kind of interlinked, and the clubs, people go to the clubs to kind of find themselves. People who don't know how to access the so-called spiritual side of Ibiza, in the end, all people are looking for is connection, a little bit of I don't know, validation maybe. They're just wanting to be seen and recognized and loved, right? And you can get that when you pop a pill and you go to the dance floor, and that's like a chemical way of accessing that. But then some people can get that by walking through nature or doing an activity like the activities we do for ColourFeel. And I feel like the island at the moment, I think the winter is going to be a really interesting time because there's so many people who have a second house here, who are moving here permanently. A lot of people I know from Madrid or in other parts of Europe have got houses for 6 months at least. And the winter here is amazing. The weather is great. The island doesn't have all that tourist tap. So we'll see. I'm really excited. I've to pivot to what I'm doing again. I've taken over an old palace in the old town, looking after reservations, but also programming lots of activities. And one thing about the old town is you're literally behind a big solid wall that was designed to keep out invaders, I guess. At this time of great insecurity and vulnerability and volatility, there's something about coming home every night. And I mean, it's not always good to retreat and go hide behind walls when shit gets bad, right? But if you're coming on a holiday, to come to the Dal Villa, you walk up this ramp and you go through this wall and you're like suddenly in this citadel, and then you go up a few stairs, a little ramp, and you come into this palace, and you go up onto the rooftop, and there's this beautiful flower field, the rooftop with a pool on it. It's like an oasis, and the whole hotel experience has been kind of designed around making people feel safe and cared for. So people are receiving little letters occasionally. There's signs around just reminding people that this is kind of like another dimension in a way, not literally, but just to kind of remind people that here, all that stuff going on outside, just like you can have a break. Like, I mean, that's another thing. There's been this expectation lately of where you need to be constantly on, constantly posting. Silence is violence, but I mean, sometimes we need silence. Like, silence isn't always violence. Like, as long as your intentions are clear, you don't have to be always postulating online. And like, I really also wanted to make the hotel a digital social media free zone, but I just didn't want that to be like another rule. So I mean, it might be a suggestion, but not a enforced rule, and there's not really any rules. But yeah, the palacete on it in itself is about just letting people relax and feel careful. So people were receiving gifts every now and again. I had a few sponsors send me some really beautiful stuff. So when you get a room, you occasionally get some gifts, and you're just made to feel good. And we cook up a nice breakfast on the terrace every morning, and yeah, and also organizing activities every now and again, because there's not much, people can't go to the clubs, but people are looking to do special things. So I'm just trying to collaborate with other artists on the island and do activations which involves walking through nature, having encounters along the way, ending with a dinner and maybe dancing at a villa. Yeah, just doing different things, and once again around ideas that I think are worth exploring and can be of benefit to people, right? So I'm kind of lucky because I've come out of quarantine, and obviously I don't have the ability for a while to do offsites for companies who are probably cutting all their travel budgets. But now I've got this property which people can come and have the colorful experience on their own terms, right? So I've got it for July, August, September. If people want to make reservations, you can also share rooms. They're mini apartments as well, so you can have like people. You can come with a group of 3, and it's more reasonable price. But yeah, I just definitely think we need, before the winter comes, we need to make sure we have like a break and we can just kind of like recharge and reflect about the tough winter that is possibly and probably coming.
Yeah, it's definitely a time to reflect, and I really hope this conversation also helps out with that and kind of inspires people to really dig into everything you're doing with ColourFeel and really check out all of the content you're producing, because we really think it's really interesting and really inspiring.
Liam,
Oh,
nice to meet you.
yes.
So I was wondering if you are, because I'm very curious of what you were saying at the beginning about of this ritual like gatherings and women gatherings and all of that. Do you have anything planned to do here in Ibiza?
Yes, I actually have this this Friday. I'm doing a thing called Night Rites. It's a dinner. It starts with a dinner. It's actually based around. Sorry, it's very rambunctious here. It's based around the idea of mortality and death. So I mean that might sound shocking, and a lot of people are like, oh, death. But I feel like death doesn't have to be scary. And this year has kind of thrown that in our face, right? That like we're not invincible and we're not immortal. And I think in the West, particularly, this cult of individualism makes us think that we're completely invincible. And I think that's been thrown back in our face this year.
Right.
So I designed an experience. If I cut it out now, I'm gonna go sign in straight away. I'm just letting you know. I've designed an experience around kind of the different ways. There'll be a dinner that's kind of themed around the different way cultures use food as offerings for people, and around the idea of death. And then there's going to be a night experience, a walk through the Dark Villa that kind of unpacks all the different elements to do with our mortality and living. It's meant to be, it's more, rather than kind of throw the elements of death in people's face, it's more about once we accept certain things that are inevitable and they're going to happen, we can live in a lot better way, right? So I try, it's really hard for me because a lot of these experiences are always really secret, so it's hard for me to kind of sell them in a way or convince people what they are without ruining it for people, you know? So I'm doing it in collaboration with Lena Sophie, who's an initiated Mayan priestess, and we're going to do some things. But basically, the general storyline is harnessing the Phoenician past of the Delt Villa, because a lot of people don't know, but the Delt Villa is built on a Phoenician burial ground. It's a huge cemetery. It's a huge cemetery, and it's got a lot of history. It's like a necropolis, right? So we're going to kind of tell that story in a way where you don't have to do it as a group. It's actually, you'll be doing it either on your own or with another person, and you walk through and you'll have different encounters, and it's kind of like a reflection on these things. So if that's something that interests you, like write to me on Instagram. I'll send you or WhatsApp or whatever. I'll send you the information.
I've been coming here for many years now, and we do have a house here. So I arrived a few days ago, and I'm staying here until September.
Good choice.
Yes. So yeah, I do come here a lot, and I'm also like interested on this kind of things that you do, no? Like for example, when there is like a you know what they do with the gongs in front of you know, this kind
the
of
sound
thing.
bath and stuff. Yeah.
Are interesting to me. So yeah, like I work I'm a curator as well, so I kind of work from home too. So I work from here in the concerts that I create and everything. So yeah, but I'm super interested in all these spiritual gatherings and things. I've been to many different things here in Ibiza.
Yeah, that's what I love about the island.
Going on, no? Yeah.
I mean, we didn't get into it before, but the like even the inspiration, like the name ColourFeel, comes from the fact that I believe, well, actually the name came from the fact that I went to like this art exhibition and I saw this video of this blind woman talking about how she experiences color, and she was talking about how she feels the vibration of the color, and that's how she experiences colors. And that just really made me think, and then I was just stuck with me. And then I looked into color more, and I realized that color doesn't even exist. You know, like color is a reflection of light. Like color is kind of an optical illusion. So then I was kind of like, well, if color doesn't exist, but we accept it as something that we see on face value, that it exists, but everything we see is not all there is, then kind of led to the fact that, I mean, I believe the most important things in our lives, like stories, time, space, emotions, all these kind of things, energy that affect us, they're not tangible and you can't see them or really touch them. So yeah, these are the kind of things that I like to play with. So that's
right. And also, like, I think Ibiza is like a mirror also. Like there's like, it's very close to what you can experience here, no? And it's a very intense island. definitely in a good way, in a bad way, depends on you mainly, but it's
Totally.
very intense island in that way.
It's so funny you say Ibiza is a mirror because I'm actually finishing off this podcast about Ibiza. It's 12 episodes, and the last episode, I mean, I've kind of got like many different voices on there, but every episode kind of unpacks the different elements that make Ibiza Ibiza. Like everyone has an idea of what makes this island special, no? Like the spirit of Ibiza, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So we kind of like unpacked it, and there's different elements. But the last one talks about Ibiza being a mirror, and how when you come here, everything is reflected back to you, and like you get what you put in. It's kind of like a metaphor for life, right? So yeah, Ibiza.
Yeah,
totally.
no, and I think it is actually like a mirror, like in the rocks that are like underneath.
Yeah.
It's so yeah.
Reflects. Yeah, that's like that's meant to be this specific mineral that vibrates on a higher level, and that's why everyone kind of feels like they can let loose here. A lot of people when they come here don't sleep. Like, they don't get much sleep. It's really crazy.
Yeah, it happens.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I'm gonna try and connect with you. I don't know if you probably have my details. You write to me on Instagram or something.
I write you on Instagram for sure. Really awesome to connect.
Great.
Very nice to meet you.
I mean, while we're waiting, like it definitely is a strange time in the island because the tourists are coming now, as you saw during this live that people were walking past. But I think half the places are closed. Everyone is kind of a little bit scared, like about what they can do, what they can't do. It's kind of once again a microcosm of the whole world. Up here, people are a little bit more free. But it just definitely is, and I just hate to use that oft repeated phrase, a strange time. Also, it's worth saying that like what you guys have done as well, like you're trying to put your drop into the ocean and inspiring people and going to all the effort. It's super important, rather than just throw your hands up in the air and worry about like the project that never was. Like I can't all these people telling me, oh, I lost like 40K or 50K because like I wasn't able to open, and I keep saying to people, like, obviously in a sympathetic way, that you never made that money. Like that money that was projected, you never had. Like the future is not guaranteed. Like stuff happens, and like until you have that money in your hand, like, and it sounds really ruthless, you can't cry about like you lost the money. No, you never earned it. Like I heard a really rich guy talking about that the other day, and I was just like, no. So it's really good to just see you guys didn't and I know how much love and energy you pour into Loom. So just to see you pivot and do this and get some really, really nice interviews and inspire other people, I think it's really important, and that's all we can really do. We can do more, we can keep trying, but we just keep pushing and we keep connecting and and just showing each other a bit of care occasionally, not just like trying to fight our own battles. I think my lowest point in the quarantine was when I just felt like everyone was being really selfish. Everyone was like me. I called them the Mimi people, and I was just like, okay, we're all in it. Like, if you need help, like we're all here, but it's not all about you. And the people who are just like, woe is me. It's just like, guys, there's bigger questions in play. We need to find the answers, and it's not all about you.
Yeah, it's been definitely a beautiful process because we managed to connect with a lot of people that were feeling the same way and had a lot of things to say and had this really nice perspective of everything that's happening. Not everything is bad, and it's a nice time for us to reflect on ourselves and everything we do. So,
but I mean, I have to say, I did get like lots of calls. And one thing that was quite shocking to me and really brought home how different I was living, like up in the hill in the forest. I was kind of staying mainly positive and productive most of the time. I definitely had some low points where everything just seemed impossible, and I was like, what's the point? But I had a lot of calls with younger creatives who were just kind of like really as well, just didn't know what to do. And like a photographer friend who was saying, like, I don't know what to do, my jobs have dried up, and I was like, well, have you been taking photos of the streets like during the pandemic? You do realize we're in this historical moment that they're going to talk about for the next 200 years? Like, maybe you should be taking photos. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, maybe I should. Like just little things like that we need to and it was just kind of good to just connect with people and just, I don't know, convince people or persuade people that, and just doing something little or small, even for themselves, was better than just sitting at home just trying to imagine a future when we didn't even know what the parameters were. Like, there was a time, and we're still kind of in that time, where it felt like the whole economy and world was going to collapse and everything. That could still happen. I mean, everything collapses in the end. But I think it was interesting just to see how paralyzed everyone was, right? When the kind of rug got pulled out from under our feet. So I think we just needed some kind of purpose to guide us through to the unknown future. I think that really helps, just doing like little projects, connecting is super important. So what I'm trying to say is thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you, Liam, for being with us today and for being up for this, and obviously keep on the amazing work you're doing. And I'm sure we will find more ways to collaborate in the future.
That would be great.
And they won't be totally digital like now.
We're going to touch each other.
You can definitely follow Liam's work on his Instagram. It's Mad City Dispatch, and also on his on the website of ColourFeel.org and the Instagram of ColourFeel. And what was the handle for that?
ColourFeel is, the Instagram is ColourFeel_time and space.
Exactly.
And Mad City _dispatch. The website, the ColourFeel website doesn't have much. It was a portal for the digital dispatch, which I sent via email. At the moment, there's just like a short description. That would have been a quarantine project, the website, but I chose to do something more productive and something else. And now I've got the Palacete, so I haven't got time to finish my website. Sorry, that'll come next year. Check it out. I mean, it's got a nice color grade. I like it.
Thanks for everyone for connecting and for staying connected with us during these times. And we're definitely coming up with some more videos, more content, and more interesting stories we find. So
yeah, and feel free to write to me, like DM me or whatever. Like, I'm always checking my messages and love connecting with people. I'm not one of those meme people.
thank you, Liam, and thanks to everyone.
Gracias.
Gracias. Ciao, chicos.